screenshotted the posts and claimed she had been making inappropriate comments in the office too. The firm acted quickly. Sophie was called in, and by the end of the week she was fired. I don't know what exactly went down, but I know for a fact that the rumors about her affair hadn't helped either. Her professional life was in tatters, and once again, I felt that dark satisfaction. Watching her life go to shambles was exactly what I needed. I didn't have my job or my boyfriend or my friends anymore, and she no longer had her job or married boy toy. I leveled the playing field but still wanted to make sure she knew she had messed with the wrong one. Her love life was next on my list. On top of her boy toy, Drew, Sophie had been dating a guy named Ryan for a while. He was a placeholder until Drew would pop the question and finally leave his wife. He seemed nice, but I knew that like most people, he had insecurities. He was originally a friend of both of ours, so I knew getting to him would be quite simple. The thing is, Ryan was never online. He didn't even have a social media account, and he distanced himself from every one of Sophie's friends simply because he was so introverted. He didn't even know about Sophie's affair being exposed publicly, so I was going to make sure he did. Getting to him was hard, so what I did was find his email, his only form of social media, if you can even call it that. That's how I began planting seeds of doubt. I sent him anonymous emails and hinted that Sophie wasn't who he thought she was. I even showed evidence of her cheating. The text messages between her and Drew went straight to his email, and I even made a little bit of evidence of her talking to other guys. Little by little, I chipped away at his trust in her. After weeks of this kind of stuff, Ryan finally broke up with her. She was devastated. I remember seeing a post she made on Instagram, something vague about heartbreak and betrayal. It almost made me feel bad. She did like Ryan, but I always knew that she would have instantly dropped him if Drew ever gave her a chance, and that's what made me feel better. Any normal person would have been done by now, but not me. Finally, I went for the knockout punch, her home. Sophie lived in a nice apartment downtown, but I knew she was barely scraping by. Whenever I would ask her to go out for brunch, or if she wanted to do anything that involved money, I would have to pay her way. She told me she was barely making it with the cost of living downtown. Her rent was eating most of her check, but she wanted to look good for her coworkers because most of them also lived in the neighborhood. That was another reason she wanted the promotion. She said a few extra $1,000 a year would give her room to breathe while doing something she loved. She told me that she'd been late on rent a couple of times, and I used that information to tip off her landlord. I sent him an email acting as a credit card company to let him know that her credit usage was high to make him think she wouldn't be able to pay rent again this month. I also spread rumors around her apartment complex about her affair and how she was mentally unstable. The neighbors started complaining and said they feared what she would do since she was mentally unstable, and the landlord, wanting to avoid any trouble, evicted her. With no job, no boyfriend, and now no home, Sophie was left with nothing. She moved from couch to couch, crashing at friends' places until even they started to distance themselves. I had taken everything from her, the same way she had taken everything from me. Soon after everyone had seen what had happened to Sophie and how bad of a person she was, they didn't want anything to do with her. Our friend group eventually would start hanging out without her and stop inviting her to birthday parties. Ryan and I started talking after he broke up with Sophie, and I told him how sorry I was that she had treated him so wrongly. He thanked me for being a real friend to him and asked me out for brunch. I kindly agreed and gave him a cute smirk. For a while, I felt that I had won. I had shown her that she couldn't destroy my life without facing the consequences. But as time went on, something started to shift inside me. The satisfaction I felt began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of emptiness. I became obsessed with her downfall. Every day I checked to see if there was more news, more signs of her crumbling life. But the more I watched her, the more I realized how much I had sacrificed in my quest for revenge. Eventually, Ryan stopped talking to me because he said that every time we went on a date, I was so focused on speaking about Sophie instead of trying to get to know him more as a person and see if we were a good match. I also should mention throughout this I had gotten a new job, one I was very qualified in and expected myself to do well. But the problem was that my work performance had plummeted because I was using every waking second thinking about what Sophie had going on instead of how I could better the marketing strategy for the new business I was working for. I was isolated, angry, and bitter, much like the person I had destroyed. I was watching a show in my living room to escape the harshness of reality and saw my reflection looking back at me from the black screen. I had won the war, but at what cost? One day I saw Sophie. She was sitting alone at a coffee shop and staring at her phone. She looked tired and worn out. She didn't see me, and I didn't approach her, but something inside me twisted as I watched her. She looked so small, so fragile. She wasn't confident or half as vibrant a woman I had once called my best friend. She was a shell of herself, and for the first time, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. I had gotten my revenge. I had ruined her life, but in the process, I had ruined my own. Reflecting on everything, I realized how consuming revenge could be. It ate away at me and turned me into someone I didn't recognize. I used to think that taking her down would make me feel whole again, and that I would get my life back once she paid for what she'd done, but I was wrong. Revenge was a poison, and I realized that it doesn't just destroy your enemy, it destroys you too. I've lost her. I've lost myself, and I'm left wondering if it was all worth it.